folks, apologies for that little microphone click that you're hearing there. We're working on getting that fixed. And apologies for having to restart the podcast. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of technical issues come up and I had to go ahead and restart. Apologies for that. I am going to re-announce the winner of our giveaway. I want to let you know that YouTube subscriber Be Wise Now, that is YouTube subscriber Be Wise Now, has won a copy, a free copy, in fact, of my book, How to Reconnect with Your Loved One When Someone You Love Has Closed the Lines of Communication. And apparently Pebbles has a lot to say about this topic, as she normally does about everything in life. So Pebbles agrees, Be Wise Now, that you have definitely won a copy of my book and that you need to let me know within a week's time that you're happy to claim that free copy. So Be Wise Now. I know that you know how to get in touch with me because I know that we have talked off the air. So go ahead and let me know within a week's time. It is currently 5:38 p.m. Central Standard Time on Friday, December 8th, 2017. So within a week's time, let's go ahead and just say by December 16th, shall we, 2017, that you'll go ahead and let me know by that time that you do want to go ahead and grab that. I realize I've said go ahead 18 times just now in a row, but that you do want to grab a copy of my book for free, How to Get Your Loved One Back, okay, when someone you love has closed the lines of communication. So basically, it's how to reconnect with that loved one. It's how to re-up that relationship, shore things up, and kind of grab some good emotional boundaries. And it has worked for myself as well as 100% of the clients I have tried it on. Now, I do want to caution you, not just Be Wise Now, but everybody out there who is going to win a free copy of this book in future when they subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dominique Does Life. Okay, I want to let you know that I do not want people using this unless they're really committed to doing it. So this has got to be something that you're very committed to doing. And, you know, reconnecting with this person has to be something that you really, really want. Also, I want you to use this responsibly, basically. So don't be engaging in any emotional games or anything like that. Like, this is really a technique that works, and it's going to help you to connect with this person on a deep level. So I don't want anybody using it unless they're serious about reconnecting with this person on a deep level and keeping them in their life, right? So we don't want people who are going to be playing emotional games. We don't want people who are just trying to reconnect with someone to sleep with them one last time and then kick them to the curb or what have you. And we certainly don't want people using this as a tool to say F you to somebody that they think has wronged them, right? So we want this to be a serious thing. We want this to be a mutually respectful and responsive thing. And we also don't want anybody, of course, using this to reconnect with a problem personality type like a sociopath or a narcissist or a cluster B. We don't want that kind of person in the lives of my listeners or my clients or my viewers. So just putting it out there. So Be Wise Now. Get in touch with me by December 16th, 2017, and I'll hook you up with a free copy, either ebook or printed format of my book, How to Reconnect with Your Loved One When Someone You Love Has Closed the Lines of Communication. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, hold on. I'm mispronouncing the title of my own book. I really am right now. So, can you tell that I've written about 18 million things lately? Please excuse me. Yeah, How to Reconnect with Your Loved One. I am correct about that. Apologies. It is that time of year when 18,000 things are on your mind and you have so much to do and you're just scrambling and things are slipping your mind. So apologies. Yeah, How to Get Your Loved One Back is going to be delivered to you free of charge, free of shipping charge. Just let me know how you want it. okay? And I will go ahead and get it to you. So normally, this is $3.99 on Kindle. Okay, so it's not too much. It's $3.99. So if you don't win, that's fine. You can go on Amazon and download it on Kindle. Okay. It is, I believe, 36 pages with the table of contents and the front and back covers. So it's not like it's a super long book, but it is how to get your loved one back when someone you love has closed the lines of communication. And it's essentially about reconnecting with your loved one, reconnecting with somebody that you care about. If somebody has cut you out of their life, you want to get back with them, you want to repair things, this is how you do it. 100% success rate. Check it out. Okay, enough selling things, all right? Now let's get to the topic at hand. We're going to talk about emotional boundaries. Now, if anyone has a really good way of encapsulating, describing sort of healthy emotional boundaries, if you have a word or a term that works really well for you, I'd love to hear it. Like I said before, Ross Rosenberg, I believe he's an LCPSW. He has an excellent term, not for folks who are being healthy necessarily, but for folks who aren't being healthy, and that is self-love deficit disorder. Okay, so I am trying to think of a good term to encapsulate the opposite, where you actually are loving yourself and you do have appropriate boundaries. And I really can't think of what that term would be. Maybe self-love excellence, self-love, yeah, you know what, self-love excellence maybe, but you guys tell me what you like and what works for you as far as terminology goes. So essentially, here's what you're going to want to avoid doing. Here's what you're going to want to not do when it comes to emotional boundaries. If you want to be healthy, that is. I mean, if you want to be super unhealthy, you can actually go ahead and do these things. I wouldn't recommend it, but I wouldn't recommend jumping off of tall buildings. I wouldn't recommend skydiving, and people still do it. So, make up your own mind. Be your own boss. But here is what I would suggest avoiding or staying away from, okay? So as I mentioned before, a friend of mine often says that you, listeners and viewers, are at the source of your own happiness, and that you are responsible for everything that you have in your life, as well as everything you don't have. So if something is lacking in your life, now I'm not suggesting that if you're in poverty due to medical debt or student loans or whatever, that you are a bad person or that you aren't doing enough. So that's not where I'm going with this, and I just want to be clear about that. But I am suggesting that you are definitely the source of everything in your life. And I think that that's beautiful. I also think it's a lot of responsibility, and I can see why people would kind of want to avoid that or want to not believe that or not see that or step away from that temporarily. Now, everybody needs a vacation now and then, right? I think there's a meme out there that says something like, I'm on vacation from dealing, or I'm on vacation from being an adult. No, that's not what I'm talking about. But everybody needs a break, a trip away, a vacation, now and again, where they aren't going to constantly be making choices and important decisions. But even when we take a break, even when we take a trip, what have you, it's still up to us to make healthy decisions for ourselves every day, like when to eat and sleep, what to eat, where we sleep, who we spend our time with, who we talk to, what activities we engage in. So there are still decisions to be made, even when we're taking time away to ourselves. But I think no matter what you're doing, whether you are taking a nice little break, whether you're going through day-to-day life, what have you, there's one thing you need to always avoid doing, and that is avoid not taking responsibility. So avoid not taking responsibility for yourself. You need to take responsibility for your happiness, for your emotions, for your reactions, right? So I'm not suggesting that you can manipulate your emotions and not feel things that are unpleasant. I know that there are schools of thought out there that do suggest that. That's malarkey. That's total mishigas. That's just absolutely undoable. If it were doable, guys, I wouldn't have a job, okay? If it were doable, the mental health profession wouldn't be a thing. So there is a huge difference between not having an emotion that's unpleasant to you and having it but denying it, right? So I'm not suggesting that you attempt not to have emotions that are unpleasant. What I'm suggesting is that you take responsibility for those emotions, that you tell yourself, you know, I may be feeling this thing, maybe it's pleasant, maybe it's unpleasant, but the person in front of me is not responsible for what I'm feeling, right? Other people are not responsible for what I'm feeling. That other people are not responsible for how I choose to act. So, all right, my emotions may not be a choice, even though they're not the fault of anyone else around me, but my actions, hey, that's a real gift because those are a choice. I can make a choice about how I choose to act. So taking emotional responsibility, taking responsibility for your happiness. You are the only person who can look out for you. You're the only person who can take care of you, right? So when you're feeling a little bit overly connected to someone else, when you're feeling that somebody else, you know, what they do and what they don't do is, you know, what's making you happy or unhappy, I want to ask you to challenge that. Now, I'm not suggesting that if somebody punches you in the face that you shouldn't be unhappy about that or that you shouldn't feel hurt. What I'm suggesting is that you need to look at what your actions were that might have contributed to that, what your actions were that allowed you to stay in that situation. Did you immediately put the kibosh on that and say, not okay, or say, call the police or something like that? Or did you choose to stay in that situation? I'm not saying that every choice you are going to make is easy or that every choice has an alternate choice that is better. You know, some choices, it's sort of the lesser of two evils, if you will. But you do have a choice, and you have a choice how you respond, when you respond. Now, when we're talking about interacting with other people, I think it's important to keep the HALT technique in mind. Are you hungry or thirsty? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? And I would actually add another H to this. I would say, are you high? Are your decisions being influenced by alcohol or other substances? Have you been using alcohol or other substances when you have become emotional or upset? So not suggesting that maybe somebody didn't say something to you that was hurtful, but I just want to challenge you to look inward. Have you been using a substance of some sort recently? Could this be partially to blame for why you're upset? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Could this be partially to blame for why you're feeling upset? Are you angry about something else in your life? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Are you feeling exhausted? Could these things be at least partially to blame for why you're upset, right? Not suggesting that everything is your fault. I think there's always a balance between internal and external locus of control. I think there's always a balance to be had between everything being someone else's fault and everything being your fault, right? So there's a balance there. I'm not suggesting that everything that happens to you is your fault, but I am suggesting that you need to evaluate what's going on in your life and what's making you feel maybe a little bit on the needy side. Okay, pause for coffee drink. Sorry, there's no delicate way to do that. And I'm not going to go 30 or 40 minutes in winter weather without having a drink, so apologies. So I just want to challenge you to look at some of the things that might be coloring your perspective. I also want to challenge you to challenge your belief that you are not in power at any given time. I think that, again, as not to beat a dead horse, but as women, we're often trained and told, and really told over and over and over again, that we ought to be demure and that we ought to turn the other cheek. Like I said before, we only have 4 cheeks to turn, and I ain't turning all 4 cheeks, okay? So we ought to be demure, we ought to turn the other cheek, we ought to, always react sweetly, perhaps be even a touch on the passive-aggressive side of things rather than addressing things head on. So that's how we're taught to be. And I think that it's really unhealthy. And again, conversely, it's not just women that are taught to be a certain way in society. Men are expected to be emotionless. They're expected to be strong, or at least seem strong, all of the time. They're expected to act as if nothing phases them, to deal with everything either by physical confrontation or by humor. And that's not healthy either. So I think we ought to abandon these gender norms and these sex norms, and we ought to take things as they come, react in a way that's genuine to who we are as people, regardless of gender or sex or sexual orientation or whatever. Just take things as they come, react as human beings, and, take everything situation by situation, right? So I think that it's just really important to recognize that we're at the core of everything in our lives. We're at the center of everything in our lives. Now, are we at the center of everything in everyone else's life? God, I hope not, because that sure wouldn't be healthy. Are we at the center of the universe? Goodness, no, and thankfully so. Thankfully so. We are not at the core of the entire universe. The universe doesn't revolve around us. We're not our own solar systems. We're not an island, but we're not at the center of everything outside of ourselves. So I just think that that's an important thing to keep in mind and to remember. Now, I'm going to read a portion of an article that I really like. Honest to God, when I first read this, I thought, my God, did I write this? Is this my clone writing this? Because it sounds like just about every blog post I've ever written, every YouTube video, every podcast I've ever done. But I really like this, and I'm going to link this article for you in the description box below. Please check it out. I really like this. This is a great list of how to take better emotional care of yourself, okay? I love it. Recognize your needs and prioritize your happiness. Great. Excellent. Manage your needs regularly and strategically, like a business. I could not agree more. Gradually replace self-harshness, and I would even add self-harm, with self-loving behavior. Practice savoring your alone time. And practice exploring playfulness. Practice savoring your alone time. Practice exploring happiness. I like that, and playfulness, and just being, not taking everything so seriously, really. Embrace real interest, curiosity, learning and discovery, and wonderment. So I really like this. Learn to calmly observe, wade into, and fully experience all of your emotions. Absolutely. Again, couldn't agree more. Face, accept, and embrace your most vulnerable emotions. Yeah, absolutely. You can't just look at your strengths and say, well, I'm going to produce more of those. Great, you're looking at half of the picture. Have fun with half of a picture and see how that looks in your life. It's not going to work. So, accept and embrace your most vulnerable emotions, as well as those that aren't as vulnerable. Okay. So accept and embrace those emotions. Vulnerable, not vulnerable, embrace them all, accept them all. And if you can't embrace them right away, at least try for acceptance. Okay, moving on to the next one. Be fair by responding to yourself with kindness and compassion. Would you respond to other people with being unkind, by being unkind and uncompassionate? At least right off the bat? Would you respond to another person by harshly criticizing them? I mean, unless you're a disordered individual, you probably would not do that. So try responding to yourself with kindness and compassion too. Develop a list of healthy coping strategies and distractions. I really think that journaling is essential in developing this sort of a list. So develop a list of healthy coping strategies and distractions. Consciously return to the present moment several times throughout your day. I think that's great. Mindfulness is absolutely essential to mental health and wellness. Work on a variety of different sources of joy and connection in your life. So again, not focusing on one relationship, not focusing on why one person didn't return your message in the time that you wanted them to return it in, or why one person hasn't called you, or one person isn't fulfilling every need that you want them to fulfill, or one person did this and you're so upset, or one person did this and they're your savior and you love them and they're great, or, no. Nobody's ever great or terrible. They're just people with flaws, with eccentricities, with foibles and faults, and with really great human decency and the capacity for great love and kindness as well. But they're just people, and they have their own stuff to deal with, not just yours, right? I try to look at that when somebody doesn't, respond to me right away, or doesn't check in on me. I mean, it's not their job to do that. If I need to be checked in on, I need to let people know. And it needs to be more than just one person, right? One person cannot be the source of everything for you, unless that person is you, right? One other person cannot be the source of everything for you. In fact, anyone outside of you should not be the source of everything in your life. I really think that looking at things that way lends itself to a very unhealthy sort of hero/villain thing in your life. I've known people in my life, clients, friends, people I've dated, family members, who look at other people in one of only two ways. They look at other people in terms of that person being a hero and being perfect, or a villain and evil. And it's like, wow, is that not how human interaction works and human emotion works? It sounds like if that's how you're looking at things, you may have some things to look at within yourself that could be causing you some unpleasantness, right? Now, we've all been guilty of that at some point or another, so I'm not, pointing fingers and saying, well, all of you need to fix this. Well, I'm perfect. Absolutely not. I've been there too. We all are. It's an ongoing struggle, an ongoing process. So work on that variety of finding different sources of joy and connection. So not just one person, not just one thing. That's something that I've really tried for in my life. I've tried to really develop lots of talents, lots of interests, lots of, relationships with people. I've tried to kind of live like a wide and varied life. And I've tried to make sure, to the best of my ability at least, that I'm at the source of my own happiness and that I am the source of, all of those things that I need in my life, that I'm not depending on just one other person for that. In fact, I think that's where a lot of love relationships fail. When you're depending on just one other person for everything in your life, my friends, that is self-love deficit disorder. I've been there. You've been there. We've all been there. And it's not a place that we need to go again. And it's certainly not a place that we want to unpack and live, right? Not healthy. So never forget that so long as there is life, there is hope. I really like that one. Treat yourself every week, at least, I would say, but also do something for your future. One of the things I do for my future is I invest and I put away money. One of the things I do to treat myself is I will get a massage. I will get my nails done, get my hair done, get waxed. I mean, that's not necessarily fun, but everything else I listed is. And sometimes self-care isn't fun, and it comes in the form of going to the doctor, getting a checkup, having surgery, something like that, right? Wallow in what is positive rather than what is negative. So I'm not saying to be delusionally positive, but definitely if you're going to wallow in what's negative, you better turn around and try to wallow in some positivity there too, right? Practice positive self-motivation on a regular basis. I would agree. In fact, I'd add something else to that list, you guys, and I want to do a podcast about this or a video or both in the near future. Practice positive humor. Practice positive humor. I know that folks over the years have asked me like what my secret is to not being offended by anything and what my secret is to just not really being attached to what other people think of me. That's a big part of my secret, okay? Positive humor. So for instance, what I will do, and we'll talk more about this later, but what I will do purposely is I will make sure to misinterpret negative comments. I'll make sure that if somebody says something negative to me, that I misinterpret it as something positive, or that I make it into something funny. And I don't do it in a nasty way where I'm saying something hateful against that person. Sometimes I'll even be not self-critical, but I will make a joke at my own expense, right? But I try to turn it into something positive. If somebody, insults me and says that I look like a giraffe because I'm tall, I'll say, yeah, giraffes are pretty cool, aren't they? Giraffes are one of my favorite things in life. Everyone wants to hang out with a giraffe. There you go. No insult. And the person may look at you like, what the heck, for a second, but they're going to realize really quickly that they can't insult you. I try to phrase things in a way that is positive, even if what I'm saying is not necessarily positive. I try to phrase it in a way that is constructive because I'm not trying to tear anybody down. And that's a really big part of what my quote-unquote secret is too. So I think that it's really important not just to phrase things like that with other people, but phrase things that way with yourself. If you're being self-critical, if you've got an internal narrative or an internal dialogue or both that is becoming a bit self-critical, you should try to phrase things with yourself in that way. Try to phrase things positively to you. If you wouldn't talk to someone else that way, why are you talking to yourself that way, right? So I think these are some really good bullet points on a really important list. Another thing that we should look at doing if we want to be positive and if we want to, improve our lives and improve our sense of happiness and balance is to really, this is so important. I know we kind of touched on this before, but I'm going to say it again. Please don't confuse what your needs are with what someone else is responsible for. Nobody in the world, my friends, is responsible for your happiness or to take care of your needs but you. And certainly, no one else is going to take care of your needs if you don't tell them what those needs are and give them a chance to either say, yes, I can meet that need, or no, I'm sorry, I'm not able to meet that need for you, right? So oftentimes we become bitter with other people because we feel that people aren't meeting our needs. I just want to challenge you, first and foremost, to look at that need and say, A, is this really something that I need someone else to do? And B, if it's something I feel is appropriate to ask of someone else, is this something that I have expressed to this person or this group of people? And if so, how have I expressed it? Have I expressed it constructively? Have I expressed it destructively? How have I expressed this need, right? So I really think that is an essential part of interacting, not just with other people, but with yourself, okay? Really important, you guys. I can't stress this enough. I think it's really important as well, and I talk about this a lot with my clients. It's important not to be super impulsive. If you are feeling hurt or angry or sad or unlooked after or whatever you may be thinking and feeling at that moment, if you are feeling some sort of way about something, I want to challenge you to not be impulsive. I don't want you out there impulsively throwing this at somebody else. I want you to really gauge whether or not this is something that is appropriate for you to be asking someone else to help you with, right? And I know that can be a humbling experience, certainly, to say the least. I know that can be a very humbling experience, but it must be done. It must be done. And please don't confuse what your needs are with what someone else is responsible for doing. You may have many needs, but most of those needs, I hate to tell you, are not things that other folks are responsible for. They're not things that other folks are responsible for. So it's important to realize this. And it's important to be very honest with yourself about this. If you're looking for other people to be responsible for meeting your needs, I think that's something you ought to look at in your life. I think that's something that's quite important to look at, in fact. I also think it's important not necessarily not to repeat, but at least to gauge whether potentially you might be repeating unhealthy patterns from your past, particularly patterns from your childhood that might be on the unhealthy side, but really patterns from your past in general that might be unhealthy. I think that is really essential in life. You need to be responsible for looking at those patterns and saying, could this be something that's coming up because I went through A, B, or C in childhood or in adolescence, or when I was a young adult, or what have you? Could this be something that's happening because I had some sort of trauma? Could this be something that's happening due to unhealthy patterns in my past, right? So it's just very important to look at things like that and to be responsible for understanding, for knowing and understanding whether what's going on right now is an old pattern repeating, okay? And if it is, you need to look at that. The person or people in front of you are not, in fact, responsible for you dealing with old patterns of negativity or old patterns of unhealthiness. You, however, are responsible for that. There's no way somebody else is going to know that you're being a grouch because your dad used to say the same thing to you when you were a kid that this person has said now, probably with no ill intent, and that's why you're acting this way, right? So it's not just your responsibility to say, hey, here's why I'm acting like a jerk. It's your responsibility, in fact, actually, to not act like a jerk. It's your responsibility to say, okay, to yourself, to say, okay, I see that this is triggering me, and I'm going to choose to respond differently, right? Apologies for the cat howling in the background. My cats are still kind of getting used to one another, and we're going to go in here and break up this unpleasantness right now. Right? We're breaking up the unpleasantness, Pebby. Yep, we are. So, again, really important to take that level of personal responsibility for things in your life, for your emotions, right? And I really do think that you are at the source of everything that you have and that you don't have, and you're at the source of all of your needs and being able to fulfill them. So, don't be impulsive. Don't expect other people to meet your needs for you. Certainly don't expect people to meet unreasonable or unexpressed needs for you. Trying to look and see what else we've got on our list here. Obviously, if you are expecting people to do these things, it's very possible that you might be being a touch clingy. You don't want to do that. There's a great quote on this website that I have linked in the description that I've written down here. It's a C.S. Lewis quote. Do not let your happiness depend on something you may lose. So whether it's a certain person that you feel you can't live without or a certain thing you feel you can't live without, I want to challenge you to look at it in a different light. Is it that person that you can't live without or that thing that you can't live without? Or are these needs that you could be meeting for yourself, right? Or that you could be meeting yourself and through a healthy group of other people, not just one person, but maybe many people that support you and uplift you and vice versa, right? So avoid getting carried away by that. Avoid getting carried away by that. Don't confuse, feeling like someone is a good person or has their stuff together with them having to get your stuff together for you, for instance. Don't confuse somebody being, physically attractive for there being a really deep connection between you, right? So just these basic and obvious, hopefully, things should take you a long way to being healthy, finding out who you are and what you're about, and being able to enforce appropriate boundaries in your life. So another thing that's really hard to do if you are being a touch on the dependent side is to acknowledge that and challenge that. Okay? Again, not anyone else's responsibility. That's your responsibility. And that's something I've struggled with and that we've all struggled with, I think. So it bears repeating. Challenge your assumption that everyone else is responsible for your needs, right? Challenge that assumption. And also, don't just challenge it. I'd like for you to challenge it and look at where that came from. What in your life experience might have led you to believe that others are responsible for your happiness. And again, not casting blame, just trying to open up some neural pathways and open up some avenues of self-realization for you, because I've been there myself. We've all been there. Okay? So don't get carried away by all of that. Okay? So a wonderful person or situation in your life might be awesome, but you can get along without it, right? If you feel you can't get along without anyone or anything, you could be entering an unhealthy state of mind, right? So attachment is good, but codependency, not good, right? Not good. And I do think that that's something, along with just unspoken and unmet expectations, I think that that is a huge reason why many relationships unfortunately do not succeed in life. Okay, so there are a couple of other things I wanted to touch on, and then I'm going to wrap things up. So I want you to look at the different kinds of codependency in your life and the different sorts of dependency in general in your life. Okay? I don't want you to look at, again, things, objects, situations in your life as, I need this to be healthy, I need this to be okay. I want you to look at, here are my needs. Maybe this person or situation is meeting them, but ultimately I am responsible for them being met. And if I needed to, I could find other ways for them to be met, other healthy ways for them to be met, right? I do want you to look at things that way. I don't want you thinking that just one person or one situation in your life is responsible for your entire happiness. Sure, there are people and situations in our lives that make us more or less happy than other people or other situations, but no one person or one thing is ever fully and completely and totally responsible for our happiness. And if we think that they are, well, we're wrong, and it sounds like we've ascribed that intention and that label to them without them actually maybe having accepted it themselves. If we're talking about another person and we're looking at that person again as the source of all joy in our lives or what have you, that's not a healthy thing. That's not a healthy thing. And we have to really look at, okay, so we've ascribed this other person or situation this level of importance in our life, but is it matching up with reality and with shared reality and with truth? Or has that person accepted this role willingly and knowingly, right? And even if they have, it's really our job to make sure that other things and other people in our lives are making us happy and are fulfilling us. So it's something that we're responsible for, is what I'm saying. And it's an assumption that we need to challenge, and that we need to challenge on a regular basis. So challenge that assumption. Avoid idealizing people and situations. That right there is gold for you. It's worked well for me. I try to challenge these assumptions on a regular basis myself, and it's really important. If we look at other people and situations in our life that are outside of ourselves as being totally responsible or mostly responsible for our happiness, we are going to be disappointed every single time because we have ascribed that person or situation with a responsibility and intention that they haven't accepted, and that doesn't jive with reality. So, if for some reason that relationship or that situation ends, you're going to be okay, because what are you responsible for? Your own happiness. What are you able to fulfill? Your own needs. So we'll talk a little bit more about this later. Learn to open up, broaden your world, broaden your relationships in whatever way you're able. Okay? Make sure that you've got lots of people in your life that are good people. Lots of situations that are good situations. And if you don't think you do, it may just be that your assumptions are, and your worldview is kind of preventing you from seeing the good things, right? So, hope this has helped. I'll be back with you shortly. As always, be well, take care of yourselves, and be wise now. You have absolutely won a copy of my book, How to Get Your Loved One Back. So, holler at me and I will get that to you. Have a wonderful evening and be well.